Greetings and welcome to my channel. This is Sorcerer Tal. You can also find me on Facebook in the Sorcerers Guild. Today on Unorthodox Weirdery, we are finally going to be having a conversation about cultural appropriation. I've started talking about this issue a few times, and it is something that is very important to take into consideration when working with spellcraft for actual reasons as to how to make your spellcraft work, and not just the moral implications, but we are going to get some into ethics in this as well. So, with that in mind, I would like to remind you that anything I say on the Unorthodox Weirdery playlist should not be taken as official guild policy or position on any matter. That being said, in the guild, if you are taking titles that you have not earned and it is very obvious and blatant, I may call you out on that if I feel it becomes necessary. Okay, so cultural appropriation. I'm not going to get into a lot into the larger cultural implications of cultural appropriation. I want to stick more to the actual magical aspects of this. That being said, I do want to say that it is very important to respect other people's cultures, all cultures, and it is vital that we understand the full context of anything that we want to interact with within cultures outside of our own. And we need to understand these things and, like I said, see them in context of what they are, or else we're not really interacting with them. We are interacting with our idea of what we think they are and not what they actually are. So that is kind of the difference between cultural appropriation and social evolution, because it is important that we learn from each other. It is important that our cultures are able to mingle and advance so that we can progress forward. There are beautiful ideas in every culture out there, but they need to be taken in context, and they need to be properly understood before you can really appreciate them. Yeah? So we don't just go cherry picking things that we like. Otherwise, we're just stealing an aesthetic and not actually using the idea or concept that we are working with. Okay, so like I said, I really want to stick mostly to the magical parts of this. So we'll begin with the idea of context. Yeah, and this is something that is important in any system, open or closed. We're going to talk more about closed systems here in a moment and some of the things about that. But for this part, this is important in any system. When you are interacting with an idea or a concept outside of your own system, or even within your own system, you need to have that context. You need to come to a full understanding of the idea and appreciate it for what it is before you can properly use it. Like I was saying before, if you're not doing that, if you're not coming to an understanding of the technique or idea within the context of its system, you are not really using it. You're simply stealing an aesthetic and adding that aesthetic to your own previous style. So, moral implications aside, in order to fully utilize a concept, you need to understand its context. You need to learn everything you can about it and learn to understand it so that you can resonate with it and use it properly before it's going to be of any real use to you. And that's in any system, open or closed. Now, closed systems. As far as closed systems go, sorry, I had to refocus the camera on my face. Anyways, as far as closed systems go, it's really not possible to fully understand the concepts and things and tools within that system without being allowed into the system. And most closed systems are not really closed. They're closed to outsiders. So if you really want to learn these systems, you have to become no longer an outsider. You have to find someone that can initiate you into these traditions and allow you into that community. Because without that sense of community that comes along with these traditions, you're never going to fully resonate into the concept. You're never going to be able to fully use the ideas. And again, if you don't fully understand the concept you are working with, then using it doesn't hurt your style. Doesn't increase your magical style and ability. It actually harms it because you're not resonating with the concept, and it's going to cause problems with the flow of the spell itself. So we want to stick with the things that we are able to understand and have the full context for. And a lot of these things in these closed systems, like voodoo, there's things like voodoo dolls, for instance. Well, that's not the only system that uses this idea of connecting a doll to a person so that you can cast magic through the doll. In Welsh Cunning, we call this a poppet. And it is the exact same concept. And that is an open system where we are able to learn the idea and get the context behind it so that we are able to resonate with it more properly. There are many ideas that are held within several systems, and somehow everyone has just tacked the word voodoo onto all of these. And so then we think these are closed system things. Well, if we learned the right words and find these tools, a lot of these tools are universal. Like I said, like with the voodoo dolls or spell bottles, these types of things are fully present in witchcraft and other systems. So we don't have to take them away from other people. And it's the words, yeah? At that point, you're just stealing a word. And there's no need for this. There are other words to use. There's been a lot of this tacking the word voodoo on the end of things. And that's actually, I suppose, rather offensive that we just stick the word voodoo on the end of anything strange. And, well, there's no need for this. And while we're on the subject of words, this is one of the most important things in all of this as far as what will affect your magic, and that is, don't take titles that are not yours. Do not use words you have not earned. For example, in the tradition that I was raised, there are things called manitous, which I've spoken of before, and that is someone who is born into the craft, and it means mystery, it means sorcerer, it means many things. And frankly, if I heard someone using the term Manitou, using the title Manitou that had not earned that title, that would upset me quite a bit. At the same time, I have no issue with people making and weaving dream catchers, even though that is from this same tradition. My great-grandfather very much had an opinion on this. He felt that it was better to teach those ideas and bring them out into the fuller culture to ensure that at least that part of our ways survived and was carried on. At the same time, with the Dreamcatcher itself, this is actually a good example of things not resonating. Well, for one thing, the fact that we are calling it a Dreamcatcher. This is a type of gidge. And gidge is a word that I think I've used in other videos, but it's a word that means magical item. And they are most often used traditionally, not exactly to filter out bad dreams, but for a way to actually purify the energy of a place. It's kind of a filter that filters out all the negative things, and one of the things it would catch would be bad dreams and bad spirits that had ill intentions. But that's not the only thing they can be used for. They can be woven in certain ways to increase luck, to do just about anything. They are a type of thread work, essentially, And with the weavings and the knots, you can actually focus on what you want and create a filter that changes the energies of that area for the whatever purpose you have in mind. The most common being to filter out the type of energies that would cause bad dreams and that sort of thing. So as it got culturally appropriated, it got filtered down to just the one idea, which isn't very accurate to what it actually is. And we lose a lot of the potential in that. So there's a lot of give and take, even when these things are shared. Yeah? And on that same token, I want to talk about things like sweetgrass, white sage, crafts that are made from indigenous peoples. We definitely should not stop buying crafts made from indigenous peoples. They want us to buy these crafts, or they wouldn't make them and sell them. Yeah, we don't want to cut them out of their livelihood through some sense of looking out for their well-being. They have a right to determine for themselves what they want to sell. Yeah? But things like sweetgrass, sage, and this jewelry, they should be bought from the people that actually do these things. For one, they actually resonate with the concepts, and especially for us that are practicing magic with tools or herbs bought from these sources. If we buy the knockoff made in a factory, it's not going to have that same power. It's not going to resonate the same way. And that is very much the case with things like Palo Santo, white sage, sweetgrass. If you buy these from someone that just harvested them with a machine and didn't go through the proper rituals to thank the plant and bring the energy of the plant into the herbs that they are harvested, it's not going to have that same power. It's not going to work the same. So again, moral implications aside, when we are doing spellcraft especially, it is important that we buy these things from the source. We buy these things from the people that are actually connected to that power. Yeah? Okay, so let's see. Part of the reason that I am bringing up cultural appropriation now is because some of the things that I'm going to be talking about with shadow magic are concepts that are talked about in traditions that are considered closed. Now, one of those is the crossroads. And there are many closed traditions that talk about the crossroads, but there are many open traditions that do as well. And the crossroads is very much an actual magical place, which should be open to all. So I am going to be talking about the crossroads. I'll be talking about it during the shadow work, and I'll be talking about crossroads periodically throughout the life of this channel, because it is something I work with a lot. And it is an area that we should all be aware of, because it is a very real magical place in its many different forms, and it's talked about within many traditions. Also, some of the beings that I will be discussing over this period are in other traditions. There are a lot of what are known as gatekeepers that are involved with the crossroads, not just with the shadows, but life and death. I have talked a little bit about some of these, but I've talked quite a bit in the past about the idea that a lot of these beings are independent, self-willed beings that have the right to make their own decisions. So beyond the crossroads, it is important in these closed traditions such as voodoo and voodoo and those sorts of things that you do go through the proper initiations. It is important that you go through the proper channels and sponsorship before those spirits are really willing to work with you. There may be ways to contact them outside of that, and I am aware of many people that work with several of the Loa, and like I said, that's a matter of personal choice. I am not going to get involved in there on my own, But I was told by spirits within that tradition that I have had interaction with, I'm not speaking for anyone, but I was told that I should not be encouraging people to interact with them outside of the proper channels, outside of the crossroads itself. Yeah? So, I do encourage anyone to go to the crossroads. This is a place that is open for all. We should be working at the crossroads, and we will be speaking of many different forms of crossroads throughout the life of this channel. The shadow magic stuff, we are going to be talking about working with shadows at the crossroads. Some of them may be beings that have other names, or even the same name, in other traditions, but we'll be working with them in this tradition. Okay, so now that I've covered all this about the moral implications and ethics and why it's important not to just cherry pick, I do want to say that it is also important for cultural evolution and cultural understanding and your own magical progress to learn things outside of your own system. But when we do, we need to take in the full context. We need to understand not only the context of where these traditions are, but where our place is in relation to them, and come to terms with that. We need to make these things resonate properly. Okay? I'm not saying don't borrow from other traditions. I'm not saying don't take what resonates within you and add to yourself and grow. But do it with full context. Do it with full understanding so that you actually are utilizing the tool or idea or fully interacting with the spirit that you were working with. And then it can be of benefit to you. And then you are not being harmful to the system because you're not twisting it in ways that it shouldn't be. You are simply utilizing the thing that you have come to understand within it and making and partaking in it rather than taking from it. I think that is the thing I really want to make key here. Don't take from, partake in. Yeah? Hopefully that makes sense. Anyways, I think that is going to be it for this episode. Thank you once again for joining us. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please take the opportunity to do so now. And this is, of course, like I said, something that is very much open to very much a personal decision. And I would love to have a discussion with people in the comments about this. I'm sure not all of you agree with me. Often when I talk about these things, this is one of the areas I get a lot of pushback. So if you want to disagree with me, feel free to do so in the comments. I'm always open to learning and broadening my own understanding of these concepts. And in fact, in the time that I started this channel, in the time that I started this channel and began discussing cultural appropriation, I have broadened my own idea of it already. And I'm open to learning more. So if you have something you want to say to me about cultural appropriation from either side of that point, I am open to having that discussion in the comments. Anyways, bright blessings and an interesting fate. This has been Sorcerer Tal.